Good morning, Minnesota DFLers, and welcome to the DFL Daily. Richard Carlbaum here, chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. Great to be with you each and every day at 10:45, Monday through Friday, to make sure you have the message, the action, and the tools to be empowered in 2026 as we lead up to the midterms. I want to start off by saying thank you to folks in Carver County, Senate District 45, SD 42, SD 43, and 2 conventions in Rochester for hosting me this weekend. Saturday was a beautiful day outside, and it was a great day inside doing the work of democracy in auditoriums and in lunchrooms throughout the state. So really fun to get around the state for a bunch of different conventions this weekend. Thank you all for those of you on the call who are organizing, chairing, convening, being parliamentarians. All those things are so critically important to making sure that we have a successful convention season. Before we get into the message memo for this week, we have a couple of upcoming events we wanted to highlight. First of all, Senate District 43 is continuing their spring plant sale in Golden Valley, and we're hosting virtual phone banks in CD8 to unseat Pete. Join from anywhere. Looking ahead to tomorrow, we have coffee and conversation events in South Minneapolis and Shakopee at 3 p.m. and Minnetonka at 4 p.m. These are great ways for you to encourage folks who are just getting involved in the DFL to go have coffee with our local organizers so that they can think about ways in which they can be more empowered in this moment in doing the work of democracy. So all of these events can be found at dfl.org/events. As always, drop your events in the chat, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that we highlight them here on the DFL Daily. All right, let's get into it. Every week, we focus on a message to help name what Minnesotans are experiencing in real time and to lift up DFL leaders like you doing the good work in community. We're going to share this week's message memo on the screen and then share it with you. We'll link the PDF in the chat itself. This week, our focus is on grassroots democracy. The core message is simple. Minnesotans are the hero. This is what we want folks to remember, especially as we kick off what's sure to be a memorable week for our community's collective action. This message is for your neighbors, social media, and any community organizations you are part of. We hope that you use this message on any platform you have access to make sure that people in the community understand how we are approaching this week's message. This week, we put these ideas front and center in your communications. We'll hope that you'll actually put them front and center in your communications. So first off, Minnesota is showing the country what grassroots democracy looks like in practice. People-powered movements can win, and community organizing is part of who we are as Minnesotans. This is a network of people-powered organizing, from neighborhood support networks and mutual aid at protests, constitutional observers, and local groups working around the clock. Minnesotans keep supporting one another, organizing locally, and taking action where they are. On March 28th, we're going to bring that same energy to the nation's largest No Kings rally. We'll march again for Renee and for Alex and for Liam and for the rights of every Minnesotan to live safely and peacefully without fear. Millions across the U.S. will send a clear message that this country belongs to the people. Let me be clear. The flagship rally nationally for the No Kings March on March 28th is taking place right here in St. Paul at the state capitol. And we know that there are going to be dozens and dozens of other No Kings rallies and protests across the state that day as well. Finally, the more the Trump administration tries to bring us down, the bigger our movement grows. The more they try to take away our health care, the more emboldened we are. The more they make life more unaffordable, the more support they lose. Trump is weakened when regular people show up. So join together and refuse to give in. All right, so this week in the message memo, we have a few do-says and don't-says. As Democrats, we know the message discipline matters. When we stay focused on what families are experiencing, folks understand the stakes and we can relate to them better. So here are a few things that we want you to keep in mind. First of all, we want you to say the plain truth. Minnesotans are the heroes. This didn't come from the words of a politician, but by the actions of Minnesotans. What we don't want to do is give sole credit to one person or organization. This was a community effort, and it wouldn't have been possible without everyone standing in solidarity with their neighbors. So we do want you to speak to current events and power grabs happening right now. Donald Trump's retribution campaign against our state didn't end when ICE announced their departure. We're still living with the consequences, and it's ongoing. What we don't want to do is speak in vague issue terms. That doesn't mean anything to people just trying to get by and afford their lives. What we do want to do is encourage peaceful protests. It's important for folks to see mass mobilization of people power against wannabe tyrants like Donald Trump and rubber stamping elected Republicans. What we don't want to do is engage with counter protesters. They're not there with good intentions. Let them demonstrate and focus on the reason you are out there yourself. What we do want to do is use our platform to bring more communities and groups to the table. Minnesota didn't protect their neighbors because they were diehard Democrats. Folks across the political spectrum spoke out and took action because they know what they saw in our streets was wrong. What we don't want to do is ever center Donald Trump. Instead, let's center the strength of our collective action. We are strongest when we stand in solidarity. The goal is to meet people where they are. We're not looking to police what you do or don't say, but we are looking to keep the conversation focused on Minnesotans and their lives and the fact that Minnesotans are the hero. Also, facts matter. They give our message credibility. Here's some data points that support the story of what we're seeing on the ground. Over 50,000 Minnesotans peacefully protested in frigid temperatures against the ICE occupation in Minnesota. Remember that freezing Friday when we marched in downtown Minneapolis to the Target Center? 50,000 folks. Over 30,000 Minnesotans have been trained as constitutional observers, and that number continues to grow. 37,466 Minnesotans showed up to DFL precinct caucuses. That's the exact number. 37,466 people showed up to DFL precinct caucuses, including nearly 50% of folks who attended for the first time ever. The people of Minneapolis have been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. The people of the Twin Cities will receive the JFK Profile and Courage Award just last week. So you can go onto your LinkedIn and you can name yourself as a Minnesotan an award winner of the JFK Profile and Courage Award. One young Minnesotan, Annunciation student Victor Greenwald, will receive a Citizen Honors Award from the Congressional Medal of Honor Society this week for demonstrating extraordinary bravery by protecting a classmate with his own body and saving their life. And then finally, over 7 million Americans joined 2,700 different events in all 50 states for No Kings protests last October. A nationwide event 14 times larger than both of Trump's inauguration crowds combined. This month's rally is expected to be the largest in the movement history. So when I hear those facts, to me, they tell a very powerful story. What I've been telling convention crowds is what those facts tell me is that Minnesotans are actually who Texans think they are. Minnesotans are united. We are focused on protecting our families and our neighbors. And Minnesotans understand what's at stake. And that's why we're showing up for our own liberty and our freedom. So what do you hear what do you hear with those facts? Pop some of your thoughts into the chat right now about what story comes to mind. What have you seen in your own community? Have you seen new people showing up that you've never seen before? Are you meeting new neighbors who are activated for the first time? I was talking to somebody the other day, and quite honestly, I was kind of stunned. Somebody who had always avoided politics, never, ever wanted to have a conversation about politics. They would change the subject to sports every single time. And this person told me that they've converted their 3D printer into a whistle making machine, and they're making hundreds of whistles every week and dropping them at different places. And that this moment, this first several weeks of 2026 in Minnesota had radicalized them, and now they are going to do everything they can to protect their friends and neighbors. That's the kind of movement we're seeing right here in Minnesota. Now for the part I know you're all ready and prepared for, turning this week's message into action. Messages matter most when they lead to organizing and engaging with our communities. This week, here are some of the actions we hope you will take. First of all, volunteer to help pull off the biggest No Kings event ever. We're going to drop in the chat a link where you can sign up to help us canvass crowds at various No Kings rallies. This weekend in St. Paul, I know there's going to be them all over, Duluth, Rochester, et cetera. We want to make sure that we're canvassing these crowds and signing people up to be ready to help us win up and down the ballot in November. And so this is a great way for you to volunteer at the No Kings rally. We'll give you a special t-shirt, I think, and you'll be one of our official crowd canvassers. So we'll drop that link in the chat. Please sign up. And then also have your own organization or local group join the Minnesota DFL as a supporter of the No Kings event. You know, what I like to tell people is that there's a massive amount of energy out there right now, right? And that is this movement that we're all experiencing. But the only way that movement continues is that if you keep feeding into it. And the way you keep feeding into it is you make sure that those people who show up on Saturday have an opportunity to show up again in the future. And that's what your local organization can do. Your local unit, if you're part of a local other community group, make sure that you're thinking of ways of not only engaging on Saturday, but also what is the next opportunity that you're going to present these people so that they have a next space to be at. Maybe it's a bridge protest, right? There's so many different opportunities to make sure that people are standing up and being seen. And then finally, spread the word about No Kings Twin Cities and share tips with No Kings attendees. Take the light rail transit to the Capitol. It's going to be a packed crowd. It's going to be a fun day. We're going to see new speakers announced. Joan Baez and so many others are coming. I know Bernie Sanders announced over the weekend that he's planning on attending, and I expect that more will be announcing their attendance as well. Our call to action today is very clear. To make a plan to attend a No Kings rally, whether it be in St. Paul, Rochester, Duluth, or anywhere else, put in the chat where and with who you plan to attend. I'm bringing my friend Pete, who's a huge Bernie Sanders fan and kind of left politics after Bernie dropped out in 2016. I told him about Bernie coming to the No Kings on Saturday, and he's like, sign me up. I'm ready to get re-engaged. So I'm going to bring Pete, and I'm bringing Justin, my husband, because he's excited to be there as well. Let us know who you are planning to bring on Saturday. I'd love to see it in the chat. Okay, so that's it, folks. That's the message memo this week. Now you have the message, the action, and the tools to put into the work this week. Remember, our theme is grassroots democracy, and our message is very clear. Minnesotans are the hero. We are who Texas thinks they are. Keep that idea at the center of your conversations this week and help us amplify it far and wide. Thanks to everyone and happy Monday. We'll be back tomorrow and the rest of the week with a slate of special guests every day this week from organizations supporting the work on the ground every day and supporting the No Kings rally on Saturday. All right, people, we have 225 days until the November 3rd midterm election. Thanks for being here. Let's go win this thing.